Catherian Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their ships were made of crystal that could bend light itself. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Every species in the known galaxy bowed to them. Every species obeyed their laws. Every species paid tribute to the throne world until they met humanity. The Dominion survey drones found human colonies scattered across the Orion Spur. Small worlds with basic technology, primitive fusion drives, simple plasma weapons. The humans had barely left their home system when the Dominion found them. According to every calculation, every historical precedent, these humans would submit within days. They always did. The Dominion sent their standard first contact package. It contained one simple message translated into mathematical language that any spacefaring species could understand. The message said, "You are now part of the Catherian Dominion. Prepare for integration. Resistance will result in extermination." The humans sent back a message of their own. It was even simpler. "No, leave us alone." On the throne world, the Emperor himself laughed when he heard this. A primitive species daring to refuse the Dominion. It was almost charming in its stupidity. He ordered the Third Fleet to the human territories. 300 warships would be more than enough to handle a few backward colonies. Admiral Thexvara commanded the Third Fleet from her flagship, the Crystal Spear. She had fought in 20 campaigns across the galaxy. She had brought 40 species into the Dominion's embrace. This would be her easiest victory yet. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of human territory. Their target was New Avalon, humanity's furthest outpost, a small colony of only 5 million people. It would serve as an example to the others. "All ships assume attack formation," Thexvara ordered. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this hundreds of times before. The colony lay before them, orbiting a yellow star similar to Earth's sun. The Vara expected to see defensive platforms, warships scrambling to intercept, desperate messages begging for mercy. Instead, she saw evacuation ships, hundreds of them streaming away from the planet like a swarm of insects fleeing a fire. "They're running," her tactical officer reported. "All civilian transports appear to be heading out system." Thexvara frowned. This was unusual. Most species tried to fight even when the outcome was certain. Pride demanded it, but these humans were simply evacuating everyone they could. "Perhaps they're smarter than we thought," she mused. "Very well. Let them run. We'll destroy their infrastructure and move to the next colony." The Third Fleet began advancing toward New Avalon, their weapons charged, ready to rain destruction on the empty cities below. That's when the sensors began screaming. "Admiral, massive energy signature detected behind the moon." "Show me," Vivara commanded. The main view screen shifted to show the planet's single moon. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then something moved. Something enormous. A ship emerged from behind the lunar surface. No, not a ship. It was too large to be called a ship. It was a mobile fortress, a city in space, a construct that defied every principle of naval architecture that the Dominion had developed over 10,000 years. The human Dreadnought was cylindrical, rotating slowly along its central axis. It measured over 15 kilometers from bow to stern and 4 kilometers in diameter. Its hull was dark, almost black, covered in what looked like irregular armor plates. Weapons bristled from every surface. Dozens of them, hundreds of them. "By the eternal crystal," the XR whispered. "How did they build something that massive?" Her tactical officer's voice shook slightly. "Admiral, I'm detecting gravitational distortions around the vessel. It's affecting local space-time. That thing is generating its own gravity." "Well, impossible. That would require controlled singularities, technology we don't even have." "Nevertheless, Admiral, the readings are clear." Thexvara stared at the Dreadnought. The UNS Indomitable, according to the identification signal it was broadcasting. A single ship against her entire fleet. The humans were either insane or supremely confident. "All ships target that Dreadnought. Concentrated fire. I want it destroyed in the first volley." 300 warships turned their weapons toward the Indomitable. Plasma lances, particle beams, fusion missiles, graviton torpedoes. The combined firepower of the Third Fleet could crack a planet's crust. It would surely overwhelm whatever defenses this primitive ship possessed. "Fire," Thexar ordered. The void lit up with destruction. Energy weapons created brilliant lines across space. Missiles left trails of fire. The Dominion's finest weapons converged on the human Dreadnought from every angle. The shields absorbed everything. A sphere of shimmering energy surrounded the Indomitable, rippling where the weapons struck, but never breaking. The ship sat there untouched, as if the Third Fleet had thrown pebbles at a mountain. "Report," Thexvara demanded. "No damage to the target, Admiral. Their shields are holding at 98% capacity. Our weapons are being dissipated before they can reach the hull. That's not possible. Nothing can withstand that much firepower. Admiral, the human ship is powering weapons." Thexera felt a chill run through her body. She had faced desperate enemies before, species fighting for survival, but she had never felt fear. Until now, the Indomitable's weapons fired. They weren't energy weapons. They were solid projectiles, chunks of metal accelerated to impossible speeds. But these weren't simple railguns. These were gravitational accelerators that used microscopic singularities to propel their ammunition to relativistic velocities. The first projectile hit the Dominion cruiser Eternal Dawn at 60% the speed of light. The kinetic energy was so immense that the cruiser simply ceased to exist. It didn't explode. It didn't shatter. It transformed into an expanding cloud of superheated plasma and vaporized metal. The second projectile hit two ships that had been flying in close formation. It passed through the first one, leaving a perfectly round hole 5 meters wide, and struck the second ship head-on. Both ships broke apart like toys. The third, fourth, and fifth projectiles found their targets with mechanical precision. Each shot was death. There was no defense against weapons traveling at such speeds. By the time sensors detected the projectiles, they had already hit. Evasive maneuvers, the screamed. All ships scatter. The Third Fleet broke formation, ships diving in every direction. But the Indomitable's targeting systems had been designed by humans, a species that had been waging war on each other since they learned to throw rocks. The Dreadnought's fire control was centuries beyond anything the Dominion possessed. More projectiles lanced out. Each one found a target. Cruisers, destroyers, frigates, all dying in flashes of light. The humans weren't just shooting. They were systematically eliminating the Third Fleet with cold, calculated efficiency. "Return fire. All ships continuous barrage," Thexavara ordered. The Dominion ships unleashed everything they had. The space around the Indomitable became a storm of energy and explosions. Surely no shield could withstand such punishment indefinitely. The human Dreadnought kept firing. Dexvara watched her fleet die. Ships that had served the Dominion for centuries. Crews that had families waiting at home, all snuffed out by this monster. This impossible, terrible monster that humanity had created. "Admiral, we've lost over 40 ships. Casualties are in the tens of thousands." "I can see that," Thera snapped. Her hands gripped the command chair so hard her knuckles turned white. "Focus fire on a single point. Overwhelm their shields through concentration." Half the remaining fleet redirected their weapons to a single section of the Indomitable shields. For a moment, Thex saw the shields flicker. The intensity of their fire was finally having an effect. Then the Indomitable launched its attack drones. Ports along the Dreadnought's hull opened and thousands of small craft poured out. They moved with impossible agility, darting between Dominion ships, targeting engines and weapon systems with precision strikes. Each drone was barely 3 meters long, but they carried plasma cutters that could slice through Dominion armor like it was paper. "They're everywhere," her tactical officer reported. "We can't target them all. Use point defense systems." "We're trying, Admiral, but they're too fast, too maneuverable. It's like they know where we're going to shoot before we do." Because they did. Each drone was controlled by an uploaded human consciousness, a volunteer who had chosen to leave their body behind and become a weapon. They thought faster than any biological being could, reacted with inhuman speed, and fought with the determination of people defending their homes. The crystal spear shuddered as a drone attached itself to the hull. Thavara felt the vibration through her chair as it began cutting into the ship's armor. Security teams, to hull breach section Gamma 7. More ships died. The Eternal Vigilance exploded when a kinetic round hit its reactor. The steadfast defender broke in half under sustained fire. The pride of Catharia simply vanished. There one moment and gone the next. Dexvara realized with growing horror that they couldn't win this battle. One ship, one human ship, was destroying the Third Fleet. All ships retreat. Emergency hyperspace jump. Admiral, we need time to calculate safe jump coordinates. Calculate while moving. Get us out of here now. The surviving ships of the Third Fleet turned and ran. They scattered in every direction, each captain desperate to save their crew. The Indomitable didn't pursue. It simply sat there, its weapons falling silent as it watched them flee. In the end, only 12 ships escaped, 12 out of 300. Thexvara sat in her command chair, staring at the tactical display. Behind them, the human Dreadnought remained at New Avalon, standing guard over the colony like a watchful giant. Ahead of them lay the long journey back to the throne world, where she would have to explain how she had lost 96% of her fleet to a single enemy vessel. Send a priority message to the Emperor, she said quietly. Maximum encryption. Tell him we've made a terrible mistake. These humans aren't primitives. Their technology is beyond ours. Perhaps beyond anything in the galaxy. What should we tell him about their capabilities? Her communications officer asked. The Vivara thought about the Indomitable, about its impossible size, its impenetrable shields, its terrible weapons. She thought about the drones controlled by uploaded human minds that fought with inhuman precision. She thought about a species that could build such a thing in secret, that could hide such power until the moment they needed to reveal it. Tell him, she said slowly, that the humans are different. Tell them they've been preparing for us. Tell him that if we go to war with them, we might actually lose. The communications officer looked at her in shock. The Dominion had never lost a war, not in 10,000 years. The idea was unthinkable, but Theavara had seen what she had seen. The Indomitable had destroyed her fleet with contemptuous ease, and she had the distinct impression it hadn't even used its full capabilities. How many more of those dreadnoughts did humanity have? What other weapons had they developed in secret? As the crystal spear limped toward home, its hull scarred by human drones, Thexvara understood that the galaxy had changed. For 10 millennia, the Dominion had been the supreme power. They had grown arrogant in their dominance, certain that no species could challenge them. Now they knew better. Now they had felt fear. The humans had fired the first shot in a war that would reshape the galaxy, and the Dominion, despite all its power and pride, was no longer certain of victory. Back at New Avalon, Captain Maria Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the last Dominion ships vanish into hyperspace around her. The bridge crew remained silent, processing what they had just done. All evacuation ships have reached safe distance, the tactical officer reported. No civilian casualties. Good, Rodriguez said. Recall all drones. Damage report. Shields at 73% and regenerating. Minor hull damage to sections 12 and 18. No casualties. All weapon systems fully operational. Rodriguez nodded. The battle had gone exactly as planned. Humanity had known this moment would come eventually. For 50 years since they first detected Dominion survey probes they had prepared. They had built the Indomitable in secret, hidden in the asteroid fields of the outer system. They had developed weapons the Dominion couldn't imagine. They had prepared for war while appearing weak. Send a message to Earth, Rodriguez ordered. Tell them Phase 1 is complete. The Dominion now knows we can defend ourselves. And Phase 2? Her executive officer asked. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Phase 2 begins when they come back, and they will come back. Empires like the Dominion don't accept defeat gracefully. She looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy that had been ruled by the Catharian Dominion for so long. That reign was ending, whether the Dominion knew it yet or not. Humanity had come to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same. The Emperor's throne room was carved from a single piece of crystal that had grown for 1,000,000 years beneath the crust of Catharia Prime. It reflected light in ways that hurt the eyes of lesser beings, creating rainbow patterns that shifted and changed with every movement. The Emperor himself sat upon a throne of black diamond, wearing robes woven from threads of pure light. Before him knelt Admiral Thexvara, her head bowed in shame. "Explain to me," the Emperor said, his voice quiet and cold, "how you lost 288 ships to a single enemy vessel." Thexvara raised her head. Her face was pale, her eyes haunted by what she had witnessed. Your Majesty, the humans have technology we cannot explain. Their ship was enormous, larger than anything we've ever built. Their weapons moved at relativistic speeds. Their shields absorbed our entire fleet firepower without failing. Impossible, declared Grand Admiral Korath, standing beside the throne. He was old, even by Catharian standards, with crystalline growths along his jaw that marked his centuries of service. No species developed such technology without the Dominion's knowledge. We monitor all spacefaring civilizations. They hid it from us, Thexvara said. The humans appeared primitive, but they were preparing, building in secret, waiting. The Emperor leaned forward. You're telling me that a species we discovered less than a year ago has surpassed our 10,000 years of technological development? I'm telling you what I saw, Your Majesty. The Indomitable destroyed my fleet like it was nothing, like we were insects to be swatted aside. A murmur ran through the assembled nobles and military officers. Fear, doubt. These were emotions the Dominion's elite rarely felt. Show us, the Emperor commanded. Dexar stood and activated a holographic projector. The throne room filled with images from the battle. The Indomitable emerging from behind the moon. The failed attack by the Third Fleet. The terrible efficiency of the human weapons. Ship after ship, dying in flashes of light. The assembled Catharians watched in silence. When the recording ended, no one spoke for a long moment. Finally, the Emperor stood. We will assemble the combined fleet. Every ship, every weapon, every resource the Dominion possesses. We will crush these humans and remind the galaxy why we rule. Your Majesty, Thexvara said carefully, perhaps we should consider negotiation. If they have more of these dreadnoughts. Negotiation. Korth's voice dripped with contempt. The Dominion does not negotiate with primitives. We rule or we destroy. There is no middle ground, but enough. The Emperor's voice boomed through the throne room. You have shown cowardice, Admiral Thexvara. You fled from battle. You bring shame to the Dominion. Thexvara bowed her head. I accept whatever judgment Your Majesty deems appropriate. You will be stripped of rank and imprisoned until we decide your fate. Grand Admiral Korath will lead our response to this human threat. Guards moved forward to take Thexvara away. As they led her from the throne room, she cast one last look at the Emperor. Your Majesty, please don't underestimate them. The humans are not like other species. Silence her, the Emperor ordered. The doors closed behind her. The Emperor turned to Korath. How long to assemble the combined fleet? 6 months, Your Majesty. We'll need to recall ships from every sector of the Dominion. Make it 3 months. I want overwhelming force. I want the humans to see our armada and despair as you command. Far across the galaxy, in a conference room on Earth, humanity's leaders gathered. They came from every nation, every culture, united by a common purpose. President Chen, of the United Earth Government, stood at the head of the table. The Dominion knows about the Indomitable now, she said. Captain Rodriguez's battle report indicates they'll be back with a much larger force. How many ships can they muster? Asked General Thompson, head of United Earth Defense Forces. Intelligence estimates anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 warships. They're going to throw everything they have at us. Silence greeted this announcement. 5,000 ships. Even with the Indomitable's demonstrated capabilities, those were daunting odds. How many dreadnoughts do we have operational? Asked Director Yamamoto of the Shipbuilding Commission. The Indomitable, obviously. The Defiant finished trials last month. The Unconquerable and the Relentless will be ready in 6 weeks. The Dauntless in 3 months. 5 dreadnoughts against thousands of Dominion ships, muttered Ambassador Williams. Are we sure this is a fight we can win? President Chen smiled. We're not going to fight them the way they expect. The Dominion has ruled for 10,000 years, using the same tactics, the same strategies. They're predictable. We're not. She activated a holographic display, showing the star systems between Earth and Dominion space. We've been planning for this since the day we detected their survey probes. We know where they'll come from. We know the routes their fleets must take, and we've prepared some surprises. What kind of surprises? Asked General Thompson. Every kind. Minefields that look like asteroid belts, autonomous weapons platforms disguised as space debris, cyber warfare programs designed to infiltrate their command systems. We're going to turn their own technology against them. Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation to the president, stood up. She was the chief scientist behind the Dreadnought program. The Dominion ships use quantum entanglement for communication. We've developed a virus that can piggyback on those signals. Once it's in their network, we can feed them false information, shut down their weapon systems, even turn their ships against each other. Is that ethical? Someone asked. Is trying to conquer us ethical? President Chen shot back. The Dominion gave us two choices, submit or die. We're choosing a third option, resist, and we're going to use every advantage we have. General Thompson nodded slowly. The Dominion thinks war is about bigger ships and bigger weapons. They don't understand that war is about will, strategy, and adaptability. Humanity has been fighting war since we lived in caves. We've learned things about combat that they've never had to consider. Exactly. President Chen agreed. They fought 40 species before us. 40 species that all followed the same basic pattern. Meet the Dominion fleet in open space. Exchange fire until one side breaks. We're not going to do that. What's our strategy? Asked Ambassador Williams. Asymmetric warfare. We hit them where they're weak. We avoid direct confrontation until we've whittled down their numbers. We make them paranoid, uncertain, afraid. And when they're demoralized and disorganized, we hit them with everything we have. You're talking about a guerrilla war in space, Thompson said, impressed. No one's ever tried that on an interstellar scale. No one's ever had to. But humanity's good at improvising, good at adapting. That's our real advantage. Not the dreadnoughts, not the fancy weapons. Our advantage is that we never stop learning, never stop changing our tactics. Director Yamamoto cleared his throat. There's another factor to consider. The Galactic Council. Everyone turned to look at him. The Council was the Dominion's way of managing its conquered species. 43 different civilizations, all subordinate to Cathorian rule. What about them? President Chen asked. Our intelligence suggests many of them resent Dominion rule. They stay loyal out of fear, not devotion. If we can demonstrate that the Dominion can be beaten, they might rebel. Ambassador Williams finished. Turn this into a multi-front war. Exactly. The Dominion has enemies. They just don't know it yet, because those enemies are too scared to act. But if we shake the foundations of Dominion power, President Chen nodded slowly. We need to make contact with these other species carefully, quietly. Find out who might be sympathetic to our cause. That's a dangerous game, warned Thompson. If the Dominion finds out we're trying to subvert their client species, they're already coming to exterminate us, Chen pointed out. What more can they do? But you're right. We need to be careful. Ambassador Williams, I want you to handle this personally. Find species that have reasons to hate the Dominion. Offer them hope. What kind of hope? The hope that they can be free, that they don't have to bow to the Dominion forever. Show them what we showed the Dominion at New Avalon. That resistance is possible. Williams nodded. I'll start immediately. Good. Now let's talk about defensive preparations, General Thompson. Thompson brought up a tactical display. We're fortifying every human colony. Planetary shields, orbital defense platforms, ground-based weapons. If the Dominion gets past our fleet, they'll find each world ready to fight. They'll try to blockade us, Dr. Chen added. Cut us off from our colonies, starve us out. Let them try, said President Chen. Every colony has been stockpiling resources. We can hold out for years if necessary. What about civilian morale? Someone asked. People are scared. They've seen what the Dominion did to other species. Then we tell them the truth, President Chen said firmly. We tell them we have a plan. We tell them we can win. And we show them the indomitable. She pulled up footage of the battle at New Avalon. The massive Dreadnought, invulnerable, powerful, standing guard over humanity's future. It was a symbol of hope, of defiance, of humanity's refusal to submit. We broadcast this across every human world. We show them that we're not helpless, that we have the power to defend ourselves, that we're not just going to survive, we're going to win. The room filled with determined nods. These were humanity's leaders, and they had made their choice. They would not submit. They would not surrender. They would fight using every weapon, every tactic, every advantage they possessed. Meanwhile, on dozens of worlds across the galaxy, other species watched the situation develop with interest. The Vin Collective, insectoid beings who had been conquered 3,000 years ago. The Thal Confederacy, aquatic creatures who remembered when their oceans ran red with Dominion attacks. The Morphous Republic, silicon-based life forms who had seen their crystalline cities shattered by Catharian weapons. All of them had submitted to the Dominion. All of them had learned to live under Catharian rule, but none of them had forgotten. None of them had forgiven. Now, for the first time in millennia, there was hope. A primitive species from a backwater region of the galaxy had done the impossible. They had made the Dominion bleed. They had shown that the Emperor's power was not absolute. Ambassador Kintel of the Vin Collective sat in his chamber, watching the footage of New Avalon over and over. The human Dreadnought destroying Dominion ships. The mighty Third Fleet shattered and scattered. Perhaps, he whispered to himself, perhaps the age of the Dominion is ending. It was a dangerous thought, a treasonous thought, but also for the first time in 3,000 years, a hopeful thought. Across the galaxy, the pieces were moving into place. The Dominion was gathering its forces, preparing to crush humanity with overwhelming power. Humanity was preparing its defenses, ready to fight a war unlike any the galaxy had seen. And the subject species of the Dominion were watching, waiting, wondering if this might be their chance for freedom. The stage was set for a conflict that would reshape the galaxy. The Dominion had ruled unchallenged for 10,000 years, but humanity had entered the scene, and they played by different rules. The old order was crumbling. The new age was beginning, and at the center of it all stood the Indomitable and her sister ships, symbols of humanity's determination to remain free. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you threatened humanity's survival. They were about to learn that humans, when pushed to the edge, didn't break. They pushed back harder. The Dominion had started this war. Humanity would finish it. Gonkt, the Galactic Council chamber, was a massive sphere, large enough to hold representatives from all 43 member species. Each delegation had their own section, designed to accommodate their particular biology. The Vin needed low gravity. The Thul required water-filled chambers. The Morpheus sat on platforms of pure silicon warmed by heat lamps. At the center of it all hung the Dominion seat, elevated above the others, a reminder of who truly ruled here. Ambassador Kintel of the Vin Collective watched as the chamber filled. This was an emergency session, called by the Emperor himself. Everyone knew what it would be about: the humans, the battle at New Avalon, the impossible defeat of the Third Fleet. The murmur of conversation died as the Emperor's holographic projection appeared. He looked even more imposing than usual, his crystalline features sharp and cold. "Members of the Council," he began, "you have all heard about the incident at New Avalon. A human vessel attacked our Third Fleet, destroying nearly 300 ships. Incident." Kintel almost laughed at the word. It was a massacre, a humiliation. But the Emperor couldn't admit that, could he? To admit defeat was to show weakness, and the Dominion's rule was built on the illusion of invincibility. "The humans have refused to accept Dominion authority," the Emperor continued. "They have committed an act of war against the Galactic Order. Therefore, we are assembling the combined fleet. We will crush this rebellion and restore peace to the galaxy." Peace, another interesting word choice. What the Dominion called peace, others called subjugation. However, the Emperor said, "We require the support of all council members. Each species will contribute ships and resources to the combined fleet." There it was, the real purpose of this meeting. The Dominion wanted the subject species to help them fight humanity, to force those who had been conquered to help conquer others. "Your Majesty," spoke Ambassador Terrell of the Morphous Republic, his silicon body reflecting the chamber's lights. "What threat do these humans pose to the rest of us? They attacked only Dominion ships. They attacked the fleet that represents galactic authority," the Emperor replied. "If we allow them to defy us, others may follow their example. Chaos would result. Would you want to return to the wars that plagued the galaxy before the Dominion brought order?" The wars always. The Dominion came back to that. Yes, there had been conflicts before the Catharians rose to power, but were they worse than 10,000 years of forced submission? "We must present a united front. The Emperor continued. Show the humans that they stand alone against the entire galaxy. Kintel raised his foreclaw. Your Majesty, might I speak? The Emperor's eyes fixed on him. Cold, hard. You may. Has the Dominion considered negotiation? Perhaps the humans have legitimate grievances. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop. Several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. No one questioned the Dominion's methods. Not openly. Legitimate grievances. The Emperor's voice was dangerously quiet. They have committed an act of war. There is nothing to negotiate. With respect, Your Majesty. They responded to an invasion of their space. One might argue they were defending themselves. Ambassador Chintel, the Emperor said slowly. Are you suggesting the Dominion was wrong to offer these humans the benefits of membership in our great civilization? This was the moment where Kintel either backed down or committed himself to a dangerous path. He thought of his people, the Vin, who had once soared free through their world's thin atmosphere before the Dominion came. He thought of 3,000 years of servitude. I'm suggesting, Your Majesty, that perhaps we should hear their perspective before committing to war. The chamber erupted, voices raised in shock, fear, and in a few cases quiet agreement. The Emperor held up a hand for silence. The Council will vote, he declared. Those in favor of supporting the combined fleet with ships and resources indicate now. 28 hands, claws, tentacles, and appendages rose. The majority of the Council voting to support the Dominion out of fear or genuine loyalty. Those opposed. Shintel raised his foreclaw slowly, carefully. 6 others joined him. The TH Confederacy, the Morphous Republic. 4 others who had suffered under Dominion rule and dared for the first time to show it. Abstaining, 8 more species, too afraid to oppose the Emperor, but unwilling to actively support another conquest. The motion passes, the Emperor announced. Those who voted against will be noted. Those who abstained will be given one more chance to demonstrate their loyalty. It was a threat, barely veiled. Support us or face consequences. This session is concluded. Grand Admiral Kor will contact you with specific requirements for your contributions. The Emperor's hologram vanished. The chamber slowly emptied, ambassadors hurrying back to their ships and worlds. Kintel remained in his seat, knowing what came next. A Dominion guard approached. Ambassador Kintel, you are to come with us. Am I under arrest? You are being detained for questioning regarding your loyalty to the Dominion. So it begins, Shintel thought. He stood and followed the guards, aware that he might never leave Dominion custody. But he had spoken his truth. For the first time in 3,000 years of Ren had defied the Emperor. It felt good. While the Council dealt with its divisions, humanity was receiving an unexpected visitor. The merchant ship appeared at the edge of human space, broadcasting a message in several languages until the humans responded. This is Captain Rodriguez of the UNS Indomitable. Identify yourself. I am Captain Velcara of the independent trader Wandering Star. I come bearing information that may interest your government. What kind of information? The kind that could save your species. May I approach? I am unarmed and mean no harm. Rodriguez considered it could be a trick, a Dominion spy ship. But the vessel was small, clearly civilian, and their sensors showed no weapons. You may approach. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction. Understood. An hour later, Captain Velcara stood in the Indomitable's conference room. She was TH, her body encased in a water-filled environment suit that allowed her to function in the ship's atmosphere. Her species looked like nothing so much as Earth's octopi, but larger and with more complex eyes. Thank you for seeing me, she said, her translator rendering her burbling speech into English. You said you had information, Rodriguez replied. I do, about the combined fleet, about the Council vote, about species that might support humanity. Rodriguez leaned forward. Go on. The Emperor demanded all Council members contribute to his fleet. Many agreed out of fear, but some voted against the Vin, the Thoris, and others. They don't want to help conquer you. Why tell us this? Falara's tentacles writhed, a gesture the translator interpreted as frustration. Because I'm tired of living under the Dominion's rule. Because my people remember when we were free. Because you did what no one else has dared to do in 10,000 years. You fought back and won. We won one battle. Rodriguez cautioned. You did more than that. You showed the galaxy that the Dominion can bleed. You gave us hope. Rodriguez studied the Teche captain carefully. What exactly are you proposing? An alliance? Not openly. Not yet. But information sharing. Coordination. There are others like me scattered across the galaxy. Traders, smugglers, explorers. People who move between worlds and hear things. We can be your eyes and ears. Tell you where the Dominion fleets are moving. What their plans are in exchange for what? In exchange for freedom. When you win, if you win, remember that some of us helped you. Help us throw off the Dominion's rule. That's a big if, Rodriguez said. But it's more than we've had before. You're our only hope, Captain. You and your dreadnoughts. Will you accept our help? Rodriguez thought about the combined fleet being assembled. Thousands of ships converging on human space. They would need every advantage they could get. I'll need to clear this with Earth Command. But yes, I think we can work together. Welcome to the Resistance, Captain Velcara. The Teche's tentacles brightened in color, a sign of happiness. You won't regret this. Word of the secret alliance spread quietly through the network of independent traders and sympathetic species. Information began flowing to humanity. Fleet movements, supply routes, technological specifications, everything that might help them survive the coming storm. The Dominion, meanwhile, gathered its forces. Grand Admiral Kor stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Emperor's Will, watching as ship after ship arrived at the staging point. Cruisers from the core worlds, destroyers from the frontier sectors, battleships that had enforced Dominion rule for centuries. Current fleet count? He asked. 3,147 ships, Admiral. With more arriving daily, Kor nodded. The largest fleet ever assembled in Dominion history. More than enough to overwhelm any defense. Even those impossible human dreadnoughts. When do we depart? 2 weeks, Admiral. We're still waiting for the contributions from the Council species. Forget them. We have enough. Plot a course for the human home system. We'll destroy their shipyards first, then their colonies, then their homeworld if necessary. A complete extermination, sir. If they won't submit, they don't deserve to exist. The Emperor's orders are clear. The officer nodded and moved to carry out his commands. Korith returned to studying the tactical displays. He had fought in 100 campaigns. This would be his greatest victory. The humans would learn what happened to species that defied the Dominion. On Earth, alarms began sounding. The Dominion fleet was coming. Surveillance systems detected them moving toward human space. A massive armada of ships that would arrive in a matter of weeks. President Chen convened her war council. This is it, she said. Everything we've planned for, everything we've built, it comes down to this moment. What are our numbers? Asked General Thompson. 5 dreadnoughts fully operational. The indomitable, defiant, unconquerable, relentless, and dauntless. Plus 200 support vessels, destroyers, frigates, supply ships. Against 3,000 Dominion ships, someone muttered. Against 3,000 predictable ships, Chen corrected. Ships that will come at us expecting a traditional engagement. Ships whose tactics haven't changed in millennia. Dr. Sarah Chen pulled up a star map. We've identified the most likely approach vectors. The Dominion fleet will have to come through the Judgment's Edge system. It's the only route with enough stable jump points for a fleet that size. And we've prepared Judgment's Edge, Thompson asked. Oh yes. We've been preparing it for months. Autonomous mines hidden in the asteroid belts, weapon platforms disguised as dead satellites, and a few other surprises. I think the Dominion will enjoy. President Chen smiled grimly. Then we make our stand there. 5 dreadnoughts against their entire fleet. We show them that humanity doesn't back down, that we don't submit, that we'll fight for our freedom with everything we have. And if we lose, someone asked quietly. Then we lose, Chen replied. But we'll make them pay for every inch of space. We'll hurt them so badly that they'll think twice before trying to conquer another species. We'll show the galaxy that humanity went down fighting. We won't lose, Rodriguez said firmly. She had arrived from the Indomitable specifically for this meeting. I've seen what our ships can do. I've seen what our people can do. The Dominion is strong, but we're smart. We're adaptable. We're human. That has to count for something. It counts for everything. President Chen agreed. All right, people. We have 2 weeks to finalize our preparations. Let's make sure the Dominion remembers this battle for the next 10,000 years. The meeting broke up, officers hurrying to their posts. The fate of humanity would be decided at Judgment's Edge. Win or lose, the galaxy would never be the same. In his cell on the throne world, Ambassador Chintel heard about the coming battle. The guards spoke freely around him, not caring what the prisoner heard. They talked about the combined fleet, about the humans, about the easy victory that awaited. But Chintel had seen the footage from New Avalon. He had seen what one human dreadnought could do, and he knew something the guards didn't, that across the galaxy, species were watching this confrontation with hope, that for the first time in millennia, the subject races of the Dominion believed change was possible. The humans would fight, and in fighting, they would shake the foundations of the galactic order. Whether they won or lost, nothing would ever be the same. The age of the Dominion was ending. A new age was beginning. And it would be written in the fire and fury of the Battle of Judgment's Edge. The Judgment's Edge system was unremarkable before the war. A yellow star, 3 rocky planets, 2 gas giants, and a dense asteroid belt that miners had been picking through for decades. Now it was about to become the most important battlefield in galactic history. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching her tactical display. The 5 human dreadnoughts were positioned throughout the system, each one a fortress waiting for the enemy. The Defiant near the asteroid belt, the Unconquerable orbiting the 3rd planet, the Relentless and Dauntless flanking the main approach vector, and the Indomitable itself positioned near the system's largest gas giant. All ships report ready, Captain, her tactical officer announced, and our surprises in position. The Dominion won't see them until it's too late. Rodriguez nodded. Humanity had spent 2 weeks turning Judgment's Edge into a trap. Autonomous mines that looked like ordinary asteroids, weapon platforms disguised as dead satellites and debris, cyber warfare packages ready to infiltrate Dominion systems the moment they entered range. But the real weapon wasn't the hardware. It was the humans themselves, 5 ships crewed by people who refused to submit, who had trained for this moment, who understood that they were fighting not just for their own lives, but for the future of their species. Captain Reeves of the Defiant. Reporting in came a voice over the comm. All systems green, ready to show these crystal bastards what humanity can do. Captain Okafor on the Unconquerable. My crew is eager. Captain Rodriguez. When do we expect our guests? Any moment now? Rodriguez replied. Remember the plan? We don't engage immediately. Let them come in. Let them get comfortable. And then we spring the trap. And if they don't take the bait, ask Captain Zimmerman of the Relentless. They will. The Dominion has been using the same tactics for 10,000 years. They'll come in expecting a traditional battle. Ships lined up nice and neat. They can't imagine anything else. Rodriguez was right. Grand Admiral Korith's fleet emerged from hyperspace exactly where humanity had predicted. 3,000 ships materialized in the void, their crystalline hulls reflecting the star's light. It was a magnificent sight, a demonstration of the Dominion's power that had made countless species surrender without firing a shot. All ships, assume formation, Korth commanded. Locate the human vessels. Admiral, we're detecting 5 large contacts. Configuration matches the dreadnought we encountered at New Avalon. Only 5? Korth smiled. The humans are even more foolish than I thought. All ships advance. We'll overwhelm them with numbers. The Dominion fleet moved forward in perfect formation, lines of ships stretching across space, each one precisely positioned. It was beautiful in its way. A ballet of military precision. It was also exactly what humanity wanted them to do. They're in the kill zone, Rodriguez's tactical officer reported. Wait, Rodriguez ordered. Let them get deeper. On the throne world, the Emperor watched the battle through a holographic display. He sat on his throne, confident in his fleet's superiority. Around him stood his advisors, all wearing expressions of anticipation. The humans are vastly outnumbered, one advisor noted. This will be over quickly. As it should be, the Emperor replied. Let this be a lesson to any species that considers defying us. In the Judgment's Edge system, the Dominion fleet continued its advance. They were now surrounded by what they thought was empty space. In reality, they were surrounded by thousands of hidden weapons. Now, Rodriguez commanded. The trap was sprung. Asteroids that had sat dormant suddenly activated. They weren't asteroids at all, but autonomous mines with sophisticated targeting systems. They accelerated toward the nearest Dominion ships, moving too fast for point defense systems to track. The first wave of mines struck. Explosions rippled through the Dominion formation. Ships that had been intact one moment were crippled or destroyed the next. The perfect formation shattered as captains took evasive action. "What's happening?" Koreth demanded. "Where are those weapons coming from?" "They're everywhere, Admiral. The asteroid field, the debris, even some of the planet's moons. They've weaponized the entire system. Return fire. Destroy anything that moves." But the mines were just the beginning. Hidden weapon platforms activated, revealing themselves to be far more dangerous than the debris they pretended to be. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, railguns, all opened fire simultaneously. The Dominion fleet found itself under attack from every direction. Ships exploded, shields failed. Chaos replaced order as the carefully organized formation broke apart. "All ships focus fire on the human dreadnoughts," Koreth ordered. "Ignore the mines. Ignore the platforms. Destroy those 5 ships." The Dominion fleet tried to regroup, turning its massive firepower toward the human dreadnoughts. Thousands of weapons fired at once, a storm of energy and destruction that should have overwhelmed any defense. The dreadnoughts' shields held. Shields at 85% and holding. Rodriguez's tactical officer reported, "Regeneration systems are keeping pace with incoming damage." "Good. All ships return fire. Weapons free." 5 dreadnoughts opened fire. Their gravitational accelerators launched projectiles at relativistic speeds. Each shot was death. Dominion ships designed to withstand energy weapons had no defense against kinetic strikes moving at significant fractions of light speed. The Defiant fired into the heart of the Dominion formation. Its rounds passed through multiple ships, punching holes that explosively decompressed entire sections. Captain Reeves selected targets with cold precision, prioritizing capital ships and command vessels. The Unconquerable focused on the fleet flanks, preventing them from encircling the human position. Captain Okafor's crew worked with mechanical efficiency, loading, firing, in a rhythm that turned ships into debris clouds. The Relentless and Dauntless worked in tandem, their combined firepower creating a wall of destruction that nothing could pass. Zimmerman and her counterpart, Captain Hassan, had trained together for months. They moved like a single organism, covering each other's blind spots, coordinating their fire to maximize damage. And the indomitable Rodriguez's ship struck at the command structure. She had studied Dominion tactics, knew where their flagships would be positioned. Her weapons found them with unerring accuracy. "Admiral Corps' flagship is damaged," reported the tactical officer. "Direct hit to their command section." "Good," Rodriguez said. "Let's see how well they fight." Without clear leadership on the Emperor's will, alarms screamed. Koreth pulled himself from the floor where the impact had thrown him. Half his bridge crew was dead or injured. Fires burned in sections that should have been impossible to ignite. "Damage report," he shouted. "Shields offline. Main weapons offline. We're venting atmosphere on decks 3 through 7. How many ships have we lost?" 400 and counting, Admiral. The mines took out our forward elements. The dreadnoughts are destroying our capital ships. And something's wrong with our command network. Ships aren't responding to orders. That last part was humanity's cyber warfare in action. The virus that Dr. Chen had developed was spreading through the Dominion Fleet quantum communication network. It fed false information to ship captains, delayed critical orders, and in some cases shut down weapon systems entirely. The Dominion Fleet was tearing itself apart. "We need to retreat," Koreth, second in command, said. "Reform outside the system and reassess." Retreat. Koreth's pride wared with reality. The Dominion never retreated, but they were losing. Ships were dying by the dozens. The humans had turned what should have been an easy victory into a nightmare. "Admiral, we must." The Emperor's will shook again, as another round struck. This one penetrated the weakened shields and tore into the ship's hull. Secondary explosions rippled through the vessel. "All ships emergency retreat." Koreth finally ordered, "Fall back to Rally Point Gamma." The Dominion fleet turned and ran. But running was difficult when you were surrounded by mines, harassed by autonomous weapons, and being hunted by 5 dreadnoughts that could outrun most of your ships. Rodriguez watched them flee. Pursuit pattern Delta. Don't let them regroup. The 5 dreadnoughts accelerated their fusion drives, pushing them to speeds that Dominion ships couldn't match. They picked off stragglers, destroyed damaged ships that couldn't keep up with the retreat, and generally made the withdrawal as costly as possible. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Dominion flagship," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." Kor's face appeared on the screen. He looked old, defeated, nothing like the proud admiral who had entered the system hours ago. "Cease fire," he said. "We're leaving your space. You've won. You attacked us." Rodriguez replied coldly. "You came to exterminate us. Why should we let you leave? Because if we don't return to report what happened here, the Emperor will send another fleet, and another. He'll throw every ship the Dominion has at you." Rodriguez considered. They had destroyed a significant portion of the Dominion fleet, over 1,000 ships by current count, but they couldn't wipe them out entirely. Some would escape, and Kor was right. The Emperor would send more, unless the survivors brought back the right message. "Go," Rodriguez said. "Return to your Emperor. Tell him what happened here. Tell him that humanity will not submit. Tell him that if he sends another fleet, we'll destroy that one too. Tell him that the age of the Dominion is over." Corinth nodded slowly. "I'll tell him. I don't know if he'll listen. Then we'll keep teaching the lesson until he does." The transmission ended. The surviving Dominion ships fled the system, leaving behind the wreckage of their fleet. Over 1,000 ships destroyed, tens of thousands of Catharians dead, the mightiest armada in galactic history, shattered by 5 human dreadnoughts and superior tactics. "Casualties?" Rodriguez asked. "Minimal, Captain. Some shield damage, minor hull breaches, but no serious injuries. The Relentless took a hit to their secondary reactor, but they're already repairing it." Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. They had won. Against impossible odds outnumbered hundreds to 1. Humanity had won. "Send a message to Earth," she ordered. "Tell them the Dominion fleet has been defeated. Humanity remains free." Across the galaxy, reactions to the battle varied. On the throne world, the Emperor watched his fleet destruction with growing horror. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Dominion didn't lose battles. They certainly didn't lose battles this decisively. "Your Majesty," an advisor ventured carefully, "perhaps we should consider negotiation." "Negotiation." The Emperor's voice was quiet. "Dangerous. The Dominion does not negotiate with inferiors." "But Your Majesty, they've destroyed 2 fleets. Our military strength is severely reduced. If they have more of those dreadnoughts, then we build more ships. We call up every reserve. We draft every able-bodied Catharian. We, Your Majesty," the advisor interrupted, risking the Emperor's wrath. "Our subject species are watching. If we appear weak, they may rebel. The Vin, the Thoris, they all voted against supporting this war. What if they see this defeat as an opportunity?" The Emperor fell silent. He hadn't considered that. For 10,000 years, the subject species had been cowed into submission. But now they had hope. They had seen the Dominion bleed. They had seen that the Emperor's power was not absolute. The foundations of his empire were cracking. In his cell, Ambassador Quintel heard the news from his guards. The Dominion fleet destroyed, the humans victorious. He felt his thorax swell with hope, for the first time in centuries. "Did you hear that?" one guard said to another. "The humans crushed us. 3,000 ships and they destroyed them. The Emperor will be furious. The Emperor should be scared." That last comment would have been unthinkable a week ago, but now, even the guards were questioning the Dominion's invincibility. Quintel closed his eyes and imagined his people soaring free through their world's skies once more. It was still a dream, but now for the first time, it felt like a dream that might come true. On Earth, celebrations erupted. Humanity had faced the greatest military force in the galaxy, and won. They had proven that they could defend themselves, that they deserved their place among the stars. But President Chen knew the war wasn't over. The Dominion would lick its wounds, rebuild its forces, and possibly try again, unless they could find a way to end this conflict permanently. She called for Ambassador Williams. "It's time for Phase 3. We're going to the Galactic Council." We're going to the Galactic Council. We're going to show them that the Dominion can be beaten. We're going to offer them something they haven't had in 10,000 years. What's that? Chen smiled. A choice. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Every species sent representatives. Some came officially, with their government's blessing. Others came secretly, risking the Dominion's wrath. All of them came because they needed to see what would happen next. Ambassador Williams stood at the center of the chamber. She was the first human to address the full council, and she knew that her words would shape the future of the galaxy. The Emperor's hologram appeared in his elevated seat, but even through the projection, Williams could see the change. He sat differently now, less confident, more guarded. He was an emperor who had learned that his power had limits. "The human representative will speak," the Emperor announced, his voice carefully neutral. Williams took a breath. "Here goes everything," she thought. "Members of the Council, I stand before you today, not as a conqueror, but as a defender. Humanity didn't start this war. We simply refused to surrender our freedom without a fight. You destroyed 2 Dominion fleets," the Emperor interrupted. "Killed hundreds of thousands of Catharians. After you sent those fleets to exterminate us," Williams replied calmly, "we acted in self-defense. Nothing more, nothing less." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. It was shocking to hear someone speak to the Emperor this way. Even more shocking that they were still alive to do so. "The question before us now," Williams continued, "is what happens next. The Emperor can send more fleets. We'll destroy them too. This cycle can continue until both our species are bled dry. Or," she paused, making eye contact with as many delegates as she could, "or we can choose a different path." "What path?" asked Ambassador Terrell of the Morphous Republic. His silicon body reflected the chamber's lights in rainbow patterns. "The path of equals. The path of cooperation, not domination. Humanity proposes a new galactic order, not an empire where one species rules all others, but a federation where every species has a voice, where decisions are made collectively, not imposed by force." The chamber exploded with sound. Some delegates shouted in support, others in horror. The Emperor's expression remained cold and still. "You propose to destroy the Dominion," he said quietly. "No, Your Majesty. We propose to transform it into something better. The Catharians are a great people, with much to offer the galaxy. But so is every other species here. Why should your greatness require our submission?" "The Dominion has kept peace for 10,000 years, the Emperor replied. "Before us, the galaxy was at war. Species fought species in endless conflicts. We brought order to chaos." "You brought stability through fear," Williams countered. "But now that fear is breaking, you've seen what happened after Judgment's Edge. How many of your subject species are questioning your rule right now? How long before that questioning becomes rebellion?" She gestured around the chamber. "Half the species here voted against supporting your war with humanity. They don't want to help you conquer us. Many of them have never wanted to be part of your empire. They simply had no choice. And you're giving them a choice." The Emperor's tone was dangerous. "I'm showing them they have power. Power you can't strip away because it comes from within. The power to say no. The power to choose their own destinies." Ambassador Chintel rose in his section. He had been released from detention only hours before. A gesture the Emperor hoped would show mercy. Now he spoke, his voice steady despite the risk. "The human speaks truth," Chintel said. "For 3,000 years, the Vin have been part of the Dominion, not by choice, but by conquest. We remember our freedom, we remember our sovereignty, and we want it back." "Careful, Ambassador," the Emperor warned. "Why should I be careful? Will you imprison me again? Execute me? You can silence me, Your Majesty, but you cannot silence what I represent. There are billions of Vin who feel as I do, billions of Thal, Morphous, and dozens of other species. We are tired of bowing." Other delegates began to stand. Not all of them, but enough. The Thal Confederacy, the Morphous Republic, species that had been conquered centuries or millennia ago, all finding their voices at once. The Emperor looked around his chamber, seeing the unity of his empire crumbling before his eyes. "And what of loyalty? What of the oaths your ancestors swore? Oaths given under duress are not binding. Williams said. "You know this, Your Majesty. The only legitimate government is one that rules with the consent of the governed. Then you would see chaos return to the galaxy. No, we would see freedom. There's a difference." The Emperor stood, his holographic form towering over the assembly. "I could order the combined fleet survivors to attack you all right now. Crush this rebellion before it spreads." "You could try," Williams agreed, "but it wouldn't work. Even if you destroyed every ship in this chamber, the idea would remain. The idea that the Dominion can be resisted, that freedom is possible. Ideas are bulletproof, Your Majesty. You can't kill them with weapons." For a long moment, no one spoke. The Emperor stood silent, weighing his options. He could order an attack, could try to maintain his empire through force. But Williams was right. The foundation had cracked. The fear that held his empire together was breaking. Finally, he spoke. "What exactly do you propose?" "A constitutional convention, representatives from every species, including the Catherians, meeting as equals. We draft a new framework for galactic governance, one based on cooperation, not coercion, on consent, not conquest. And if I refuse," Williams met his gaze steadily, "then the galaxy descends into civil war. Species will rebel. You'll fight on 100 fronts against enemies who have learned from humanity's example. You might win some battles. You might even win most of them. But you'll never have peace again. Never have the stability you claim to value so much. You're threatening me. I'm offering you a choice, Your Majesty. The same choice you refuse to give humanity. Submit or fight. But unlike you, we're offering a third option. Join us. Be part of something new, something better." The Emperor looked around the chamber, at the delegates standing in open defiance, at the ones sitting nervously, waiting to see which way the wind would blow. At his ancient empire, 10,000 years of dominance, teetering on the edge of collapse. "I will consider your proposal," he said finally. "This session is adjourned." His hologram vanished. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates arguing, celebrating, panicking. William stood at the center of it all, knowing that she had just changed the galaxy forever. 3 months later, delegates from 43 species gathered on a neutral world for the Constitutional Convention. The Catherians sent representatives, though not the Emperor himself. He had retreated to the throne world, watching events unfold with apparent detachment. But he was watching, and that was what mattered. The convention lasted 6 months. There were arguments, walkouts, and at least 3 near brawls. But slowly, painfully, a new framework emerged. The Galactic Federation would replace the Dominion. Each species would have representation proportional to their population. Decisions would be made by majority vote, not imperial decree. Military forces would be defensive, not offensive. Conquest was forbidden. The Catherians would remain important, even dominant in some ways. Their technology, their experience, their vast resources would ensure they had significant influence. But they would no longer rule alone. They would be one voice among many. Ambassador Chintel stood with Williams on the last day of the convention, watching delegates sign the new charter. "Do you think it will work?" he asked. "Honestly, I don't know. Democracy is messy. It's slow. It requires compromise and patience, and a willingness to accept decisions you don't like. But it's better than tyranny. Much better." They watched as the Catherian delegate approached the signing table. His hand trembled slightly as he placed his mark on the document. 10,000 years of imperial rule, ending with a simple signature. "The Vin are free," Chintel whispered. "For the first time in 3,000 years, we're free." William smiled. "How does it feel?" "Terrifying. Wonderful. Like learning to fly all over again." Back on Earth, Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking out at the stars. The ship was being retrofitted, her weapons upgraded, her systems improved. Not for conquest, but for protection. The galaxy was changing, but it would always need defenders. "Captain, we're receiving a message from Earth," her communications officer announced. "President Chen wants to speak with you." Rodriguez activated the holographic display. Chen's face appeared, smiling. "Captain Rodriguez, the Federation Council has voted. You're being appointed as the first commander of the Federal Defense Fleet." Rodriguez blinked in surprise. Ma'am, the galaxy needs protection, Captain. Not from external threats. We haven't found any, but from ourselves. From species that might forget the lessons we've learned. From the temptation to return to the old ways of conquest and domination. Your dreadnoughts will serve as a reminder, a symbol that the Federation will defend itself and its principles. It's a big responsibility. You've handled bigger. You faced down the Dominion twice in one. You can handle keeping the peace. Rodriguez smiled. I suppose I can. What about the Catharians? Will they accept human leadership of the military? They don't have much choice. Besides, it was their representative who proposed it. They recognize that humanity has proven itself, that our dreadnoughts and our determination earned us this position. Very well, Madam President. The Indomitable and her sister ships will serve the Federation. I know you will. Chan out. The hologram faded. Rodriguez turned to look at her crew. They had been through so much together, fought impossible battles, changed the galaxy. Now they would protect it. Helm set course for Federation headquarters. Let's go show them what humanity can do in peacetime. The Indomitable's engines hummed to life. The great Dreadnought, symbol of humanity's defiance, began its journey toward a new purpose. Not as a weapon of war, but as a guardian of peace. On the throne world, the Emperor sat alone in his throne room. The lights were dim. The crystalline walls that once reflected his power now seemed empty, hollow. Grand Admiral Korth approached, bowing deeply. Your Majesty, the Federation has formally established its government. The transition is complete. I know the people are adjusting. There are protests, but also celebrations. Some Catharians mourn the Empire. Others welcome the change. The Emperor nodded slowly. History will judge us, Corinth. They will say the Dominion ruled for 10,000 years and then fell. They will debate whether we were conquerors or peacekeepers, tyrants or guardians. What do you think we were, Your Majesty? The Emperor considered. We were necessary once. The galaxy needed order, and we provided it. But we stayed too long, held too tightly. The humans taught us that. They showed us that our time had passed. Do you regret it? The war, the conflict, everything we lost? No. Pain is often the only teacher that can reach the proud. We were proud, Corinth. Perhaps too proud. The humans humbled us. That might be the best thing that ever happened to the Catharian people. Kor looked at his emperor with new understanding. You knew we couldn't win. Not really, I suspected. The humans were different from the beginning. Innovative, adaptable, determined. They reminded me of what we were millennia ago, before we became comfortable in our dominance. The emperor stood. Come, we have much work to do. The Dominion is dead, but the Catharians will endure. We'll find our place in this new galaxy. Across the stars, the change rippled outward. Species that had been silent for centuries found their voices. Cultures that had been suppressed began to flourish. Art, music, philosophy, science, all exploded in a renaissance of freedom. There were problems, of course. Arguments over borders, disputes over resources, species that tested the Federation's limits. But they were solved through negotiation, not conquest, through cooperation, not domination. And when threats did emerge, when violence threatened the fragile peace, the dreadnoughts were there. 5 massive ships, symbols of humanity's refusal to submit, now standing guard over all species' freedom. William stood in the Federation Council chamber, now as Earth's permanent representative. She watched delegates from dozens of species debate the issues of the day. They argued passionately, sometimes angrily, but always peacefully. This was what they had fought for. Not just humanity's freedom, but everyone's freedom. The right to choose, the right to speak, the right to shape their own destiny. The Galactic Empire had stared in horror as it couldn't stand against humanity's dreadnoughts. But in falling, it had given birth to something greater. A federation of equals, a galaxy of free peoples, a future worth fighting for. Years passed. The scars of war faded, though they were never forgotten. Monuments were built on New Avalon at Judgment's Edge, and on a dozen other worlds. They honored those who had died, both human and Catharian, both victor and vanquished. Because in the end, everyone had lost something in the war, and everyone had gained something too. The Vin learned to fly free again, their skies filled with their people, soaring through the thin atmosphere of their world without fear. Chintel, now the elected leader of his people, would often take to the air himself, feeling the wind beneath his wings and remembering what freedom cost. The thaw expanded into new oceans, their aquatic cities growing beyond anything the Dominion had allowed. Captain Velkera became an admiral in the Federal Defense Fleet, commanding a fleet of her own. She never forgot that day. She approached the Indomitable with hope and information, starting the alliance that helped bring down an empire. The Morphe's Republic flourished, their silicon-based technology merging with human innovations to create wonders. Ambassador Terrell became the Federation's chief scientist, overseeing projects that benefited all species equally. Even the Catherians found new purpose. Without the burden of ruling through fear, they rediscovered their own culture. Their crystal cities grew more beautiful. Their art became more expressive. Their people, freed from the necessity of projecting dominance, became more themselves. The Emperor himself stepped down after 5 years, replaced by an elected council. He spent his remaining years writing a history of the Dominion, trying to understand where they had gone wrong and hoping future generations would learn from their mistakes. His final work was titled The Burden of Empire, and it became required reading in Federation schools across the galaxy. Humanity, meanwhile, took to its role as guardian with characteristic determination. The Dreadnoughts patrolled constantly, their presence a reminder that the Federation would defend itself. But they also became symbols of hope. When natural disaster struck, Dreadnoughts arrived with supplies and aid. When colony ships needed escorts to new worlds, Dreadnoughts provided protection. The ships built for war became instruments of peace. Rodriguez served as commander of Federal Defense for 20 years before retiring. She spent her remaining days on New Avalon, the colony her ship had defended. Every day she would walk to the monument that stood where the Indomitable had first revealed itself. Children would gather around her, asking to hear the stories of the war. She always obliged, not to glorify violence, but to ensure they understood what their freedom had cost, what it would always cost to maintain. Remember, she would tell them, we didn't fight because we wanted to. We fought because we had to, because some things are worth fighting for. Your freedom, your dignity, your right to choose your own path among the stars. Will there be more wars? A young girl asked her once. Rodriguez thought carefully before answering. Perhaps the galaxy is vast and we don't know what's out there beyond our borders. But if war comes again, it won't be because we sought it. It will be because we refuse to surrender what our ancestors fought to protect. And we'll win, right? Like you did. Rodriguez smiled. If you remember what makes humanity strong, not our weapons, though they help, not our ships, though they're magnificent. What makes us strong is our refusal to accept defeat, our determination to face any challenge, our certainty that no empire, no force, no power in the universe can take away our freedom unless we surrender it. The girl nodded seriously, absorbing the lesson. As the years turned to decades and decades to centuries, the Battle of Judgment's Edge passed into legend. The details were debated by historians, the numbers disputed by scholars, but the core truth remained unchanged. Humanity had faced impossible odds and prevailed, not through superior technology alone, but through courage, creativity, and an absolute refusal to submit. The Dreadnoughts themselves became almost mythical. The indomitable, defiant, unconquerable, relentless, and dauntless were maintained long after more advanced ships were developed. They were too important as symbols to ever retire. Generation after generation of humans served aboard them, each one understanding that they carried more than weapons. They carried humanity's promise to the galaxy, that freedom would always have defenders. On Earth, in the Hall of Heroes in Geneva, 5 statues stood. Each represented one of the Dreadnought captains who had defended humanity at Judgment's Edge: Rodriguez, Reeves, Okafor, Zimmerman, and Hassan. They were cast in bronze, larger than life. Gazing toward the stars they had fought to remain free to explore. Beneath the statues, an inscription read, "They stood when standing seemed impossible. They fought when victory seemed unthinkable. They proved that humanity, united and determined, could overcome any obstacle. May we never forget their courage, and may we always live up to their example." President Chen, long retired herself, would sometimes visit the monument. She had been there when it was dedicated, watched as the statues were unveiled. She had given a speech about sacrifice and determination, about the price of freedom and the duty to maintain it. But her favorite part of the visit was watching the young people who came to see the monument. Students, tourists, families with children, they would stand before the statues, reading the names, learning the history, and in their eyes, Chen saw understanding. They knew what these people had done. They knew what it meant. The story of humanity's defiance had become part of the Federation's founding myth. Every species knew it. Every child learned about the day 5 ships faced 3001. It inspired them, reminded them that they too could face impossible odds, that freedom was always worth fighting for. The galaxy had changed in ways the Dominion could never have imagined. Trade flourished between species that had never been allowed to meet. Scientific cooperation led to breakthroughs that benefited everyone. Art and culture from 1,000 worlds enriched each other. The Federation wasn't perfect, no government ever is. But it was better. So much better than what had come before. And at the heart of it all, the lesson humanity had taught. That empires built on fear must eventually fall. That freedom once tasted could never be completely suppressed. That even the mightiest force could be overcome by determination, ingenuity, and the refusal to surrender. The Galactic Empire had stared in horror as it couldn't stand against humanity's dreadnoughts. But from that horror, from that defeat, had come hope. Hope for a better galaxy. Hope for a freer future. Hope that all beings, no matter their size or strength, could determine their own destiny. And that hope, once kindled, would burn forever among the stars. The age of empires was over. The age of freedom had begun. And humanity, the species that had sparked that revolution, would always stand ready to defend it. Not as conquerors, but as guardians. Not as rulers, but as equals. The dreadnoughts would patrol forever, silent reminders of what humanity could achieve when pushed to the edge. And the galaxy, free at last, would never forget the species that showed them freedom was possible. That standing up to tyranny was not just possible, but necessary. That 5 ships could change the course of history. That humanity, would never kneel, it fell. But from its ashes, something better had emerged. Not perfect, never perfect, but better. A galaxy where species worked together, instead of being forced together. Where strength came from unity, not dominance. Captain Rodriguez received a message on her personal comm. It was from a young ensign on the Indomitable, one of hundreds who had volunteered to serve after the war. Captain, I was wondering, why did you decide to fight? When you first saw the Dominion fleet, you must have known the odds. Why didn't you run? Rodriguez thought about her answer carefully before responding. Because running means accepting their terms. It means letting them define what's possible. Humanity has never been good at accepting limitations. We don't run from impossible odds. We face them. We overcome them. We show the universe that impossible is just a word. And that's why we won. That's why we'll always win. Hansen. Not every battle maybe, but the war. The long war for freedom. For dignity, for the right to exist on our own terms. That war, humanity never loses, because we never stop fighting it. Rodriguez closed the comm and returned to her duties. The Indomitable patrolled its assigned sector, a silent guardian watching over the peace. Around her, her sister ships did the same, each one a testament to human determination. The galaxy had changed. The Dominion had fallen. A new age had begun. And at the heart of it all, humanity stood proud, not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because when faced with the choice between submission and resistance, they had chosen to resist, because when told to bow, they had stood tall. The Galactic Empire had stared in horror